Morning, guys. Welcome to the DFS Minute for today, Wednesday, May 27, 2015. I'm your host, Michael Rath, here with the DFS Minute in the morning edition here on RotoCurve. A little bit of an interesting day today with the schedule. The majority of the games are going to be daytime games today, which is a little bit strange considering we just had Memorial Day. But it is Wednesday, so we have the majority of day games. How we're going to work it, I'm going to do a little bit more analysis this morning on the slate today. We're going to handle everything in the forums and in the chat room, so definitely hit us up there. And then at 12 noon Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Benny and Josh handling the late slate, giving you some of the information on the late slate, and then even maybe covering a little bit of the mid-afternoons, just because if you are playing on DraftKings with late swap or anything like that, and there becomes opportunities. So we might be able to cover some of that. But for the most part, we're going to be looking at late slate on the Curve Show today. And then they'll have some opportunities to probably expand a little bit and give you some more strategy sessions and teaching lessons that we definitely love to do here at RotoCurve. So let's get into it. Let's talk about pitchers. And, I don't like giving out a ton of pitching recommendations. So I did sharpen the pencil a little bit this morning. I'm going to give you three. Typically what I like to do is give you two top shelf and then one value guy. So to me, I think it's pretty easy today. Even in doing the research, there were two top names that stand out. Of course, the guys that are, the highest price, but also one of the guys that's, middle of the road. And I don't think any of these are, play. I think these are pretty much what we call chalk plays. There's nothing out, nothing outside the norm here. I'm just, sometimes that's just the way it is. And I'm sure the majority of people out there today are going to agree on these three guys. So let's get into it. I think by far the number one guy today is Garrett Cole at home against the Miami Marlins and going against Brad Hand, who's a lefty. Garrett Cole, the line is not posted because Hand was a late announcement as the starter, but I'm projecting this line. I'm projecting Cole to be about a minus 175 favorite today. That might be a little high, but I think he's going to be around 170, 175. It may even be higher than that. It just depends on how much value Vegas is going to put on Cole today. And I think the run total is going to be about 6.5. So neither team is really great offensively. And it is pitcher's ballpark. It's in the National League, an ace going. So I think we're going to be looking at like around 175-ish, 6.5. That's just what I'm going to project. We'll see what happens when the line comes out. Cole's pricing across the industry, $10K on FanDuel, a little bit more expensive on DraftKings. He's actually $10.5. So good value on Cole on DraftKings. On FanDuel. And then he's 7.5 on Fantasy Aces, just below Felix Hernandez. So I think you're getting good value on Garrett Cole today. Garrett Cole was my number one pitcher at the beginning of the year as far as guys to break out that were kind of outside the top 20, who I felt could move inside the top 10. And he's done nothing but deliver. So I love Garrett Cole's makeup. He's just that number one frontline ace. He's got all the makeups of an ace for a very long time. And the guy can dial it up seriously. He was hitting 98, 99 late in games the last time he pitched. So the Marlins are one of the worst teams against right-handed pitching across the board. I did pick on them last week when Ubaldo Jimenez pitched against them, and Ubaldo, basically laid an egg. What happened was they just peppered him to death. He doesn't really strike out a ton of guys. He's mostly a ground ball pitcher. Cole just gets a lot of swings and misses, so the Marlins aren't even going to be able to make contact today. And I think that, Cole's just in a really good spot here. So by far, to me, the number one pitcher on the board today is Garrett Cole. The number two pitcher, and you might be a little bit surprised at this, is not Felix Hernandez for me, because we're taking into consideration the salary. Is my number two pitcher for the day is Noah Syndergaard. And I'm recommending him for tournaments. I'm not recommending for cash heads up 50-50. I think you can go with Cole and Felix today. That would be the direction I go. You can put Syndergaard in there. I'm just not, it wouldn't be my top choice. But, if you go Felix and Syndergaard or Cole and Syndergaard, I think you're okay. But I think if you can try to get Cole and Felix in there, it is a little bit more as far as what you want to spend on DraftKings. Is going to put you at about $22,000 for the pitching salary. But I think the upside is so huge with both these guys today. I mean, you could end up getting 70 points out of your pitchers, 65, 70 points out of your pitchers. paying a little bit more on the pitching to guarantee and lock in those points, and then you have to sacrifice a little bit on the hitting. The reason I'm okay sacrificing on the hitting today is typically with day games, you're going to see a lot more bench players in. And I think there's some weak pitchers that you can attack, and hopefully we get some good value hitters in good lineup spots with good splits. So I think you're going to be able to find value on the hitting side, and then I'm okay loading up with Felix and Cole. Not something I normally recommend, but in this case I would based on the situation. So let's get back to Syndergaard. He's very cheap. He's going against Philadelphia. We saw what DeGrom did last night. And so Syndergaard's at home going against the Phillies. O'Sullivan is the pitcher. Minus 180 favorite. Huge favorite here with a run total of 7.5. So, again, they're picking on the Phillies with a Mets team that's really not hitting all that much right now. But the Phillies are just like the Marlins. They're almost dead last against right-handed pitching in every single category. So Syndergaard's pricing is 7.7 on FanDuel, 7.6 on DraftKings, and 5.75 on Fantasy Aces. So you're getting great value, I think, on Syndergaard with a great matchup at home with some K upside. So the only thing that worries me a little bit about Syndergaard, and that's what's going to happen when you take a value pitcher, he is so far, small sample size, he does struggle against left-handed bats. So that would be my only concern, is that Howard and Utley are hitting a little bit better. And so I'd be curious to see what the lineup looks like tonight, this afternoon. Do they play Utley and Howard? I'm imagining they're going to, but a lot of times they do give these guys a day off. So just be curious to see how these lineups shake out. And again, how the lineups shake out today could determine a shift in where we go with pitching. This is assuming the lineups that we think, but if there are a lot of guys sitting today that are big hitters against the pitcher, then that's going to move up a pitcher in that maybe a middle-of-the-road recommendation and then put him in the top tier. So definitely something that you want to be aware of. As our lineups come out, we do have the lineup alerts on RotoCurve, and we will be checking to see who is not in the lineup today, and that could bump up a pitcher, so definitely be aware of that. The third guy is Felix Hernandez. He's about a minus 120 favorite, 6.5 run total at Tampa Bay, going against Archer. So he does get a really tough matchup. I have no doubt that Felix will go out there and have a tremendous game. The win could be at risk, so he is a little bit risky on FanDuel, as this game could be a very low-scoring game, and it could end up in no decisions on both sides. So that would be my only concern, but on a site like DraftKings, I've got no problem rolling him out there. Now, he is more expensive on DraftKings. He's 11.5 on FanDuel. He's 12,000 on DraftKings, and he's 8,000 on Fantasy Aces. So it looks to me like today, just looking at the pitching landscape, that DraftKings actually boosts up the more elite guys, and then the bottom tier or middle tier guys are extremely cheap. One of the guys, Michael Pineda, has got an extreme pricing differential on DraftKings versus FanDuel. They're taking into consideration the Royals and on the other side. So Pineda is very cheap over on DraftKings. So he may end up being a tournament play, because a lot of people are not going to want to go after the Royals. I mean, I'm certainly one of them. But in a tournament, as a second pitcher, if you feel like no one's going to be on him and he does have upside, then that might be a situation. And I do think the Yankees are going to be able to get some runs on Chris Young. Chris Young so far this year is pretty much smoke and mirrors. If you look at his weighted on base numbers and you look at all the other metrics that we look at for pitching, something doesn't add up. He's extreme fly ball, doesn't get strikeouts, but for whatever reason, his weighted on base numbers are extremely low. So to me, I think it's only a matter of time before Chris Young blows up, and today could be the day. Left-handed bats in Yankee Stadium going against fly ball pitchers on the right-handed side are dangerous. So I think that's something you definitely want to look into. I'm not going to get into this huge detailed analysis on the hitters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some teams that have great matchups that they do very well against this handed pitcher, and the pitcher does very poorly against this particular handed bat. So the first team that jumps out, the Tigers right-handed bats. The Tigers are the top team today, typically against left-handed pitching, and they do get Kazmir in Oakland. So it is a pitching-friendly environment, so you definitely want to temper expectations with the Tigers right-handed bats. But some of these guys are in play today. I wouldn't necessarily pay up for Miguel Cabrera because I don't think it's a premium matchup, but you've got some other right-handed bats on the Tigers, and let's see who's going to hit in the top 5 today. or the Tigers on the right-handed side. And if we have some value bats in the top 5, I think then there would be an opportunity to play some of those guys. To me, the number one team that you want to look at today is the New York Yankee left-handed bats at home against Chris Young. The Yankees left-handed bats are playing pretty good this year. Guys like Gardner hitting at the top of the lineup, and then Teixeira as well. I think those are the 2 guys that really stand out to me. Let's see what happens when the lineup comes out. But let's focus on left-handed bats for the Yankees hitting in the top 5 today. And hopefully we get some good value on some guys. Hopefully we get some good lineup positions, things like that. The guy that might be sneaky today, if Garrett Jones gets into the lineup, that might be a guy that we want to look at. Typically he would hit 6th in the spot like this today. So definitely he would be close to minimum salary and have an opportunity to get some home runs maybe against Chris Young. So a guy you want to take a look at. The third team I'm looking at is the Indians left-handed bats going against Colby Lewis. I'm also looking at who are the pitchers that have a high fly ball rate against this particular handed team. And Colby Lewis's fly ball rate is very high against left-handed batters this year. So you've got Brantley, you've got Moss, you've got Kipnis, all guys that are hitting pretty good right now. This Indians lineup, I've been saying it for a while, is really hitting on all cylinders. So this is a team up and down that can definitely put some runs up. So you've got a guy like David Murphy that could be cheap. Brandon Moss is still pretty affordable. And we know that Brantley and Kipnis are pretty high priced. So I think some Indians left-handed bats are definitely going to be the direction you want to go today. Their projected run total right now is 5.7, which is a huge number. The overall number in that game, I believe, is 9. It wouldn't surprise me if this somehow gets to 9.5, which is crazy with Carrasco on the other side. But that's just it's a very high number. I think it's around 8.5, 9, but I think it just moved to 9. So Indians are 5.7 total today projected. So you're going to like a lot of those guys. The A's left-handed bats going against Alfredo Simon. It is at home, and so it is in Oakland, which is a pitcher's ballpark. However, Stephen Vogt is a guy that's always in play against a weaker right-handed pitcher. He always hits in the middle of that lineup. We get him at catcher, and so he's always a must-play for me when he's in these kinds of spots. So Simone does have a high fly ball rate against left-handed bats. So Vogt is a home run guy. He can get the ball up in the air. So definitely a guy like Vogt today. And then even a guy like Billy Burns, who's hitting at the top of that lineup, hitting left-handed, is a guy, especially on DraftKings, because speed and singles play well on DraftKings. So Burns could be a guy you can play in the outfield spot and get some good value there. The Reds left-handed bats are absolutely in play today. Kyle Kendrick in Great American Ballpark, and we know left-handed power plays very well in GAB against weak right-handed pitching. So Votto, Jay Bruce, those are going to be 2 guys that you're absolutely going to want to be locked in on today. Votto, for me, is almost an auto play for me. Votto could go out there and hit a couple of bombs. Bruce could go out there and hit a couple of bombs. Kyle Kendrick is a terrible pitcher, and especially going against power left-handed bats, could be in a situation where he could be in trouble and could be in trouble early. So I love the Reds left-handed bats today going against Kyle Kendrick. And then the Brewers left-handed bats, I think, are in a good spot today against Vogelsong. I know Vogelsong has actually corrected himself a little bit, but still he is Vogelsong, a.k.a. Vogeldong. And so guys like Adam Lind, who we always love picking on, Lind would be more of a play for me over on a site like Fantasy Aces, where you can play 2 guys at the corner infield spot. So I have to go with Votto today. And then I can even play Teixeira at the utility spot, and I could go with a guy like Adam Lind at the other corner infield spot. So that's why I like Fantasy Aces, because you have that line of flexibility to be able to get some guys in. And even a guy like Gerardo Parra, who typically does much better against right-handed pitching and hits at the top of the lineup, would be a guy that you could look at as well. So that's the preview for today. Hopefully you guys definitely keep an eye on lineups. They're going to be coming out early. It's going to be very crazy as we got a lot of day games today. It's a unique schedule. So let's see what we can do today. Let's do some damage. And hit us up in the chat. Hit us up in the forum. We'll be available most of the morning leading up until the first pitch today. All right, guys, as we always say here at Roto Curve and the DFS Minute, stay classy, DFS.